Welcome back, Visions fans. Ready Player Will here with a brand new character review. This time it's Sakura, a character from Final Fantasy Brave Exvius, the predecessor game to War of the Visions. Really an interesting unit for a handful of different reasons. She's got two brand new jobs to the game. She's got some multi-element attacks, a whole bunch of unique things in her kit, and overall a really solid magic user with a really cool weapon released as well that's going to benefit her in the long run. So let's jump into it. We'll see what makes her shine. Sakura is a light element unit. She's honestly one of the characters that is now going to turn the dark meta on its head for two reasons. Number one, obviously elemental advantage, where she's so powerful as a light unit, it's going to be more competitive with the dark units than our other light units have been. Secondly, she's specifically kind of a Kain counter, and Kain is really the one that helped enable the dark meta, where not only was dark comps really prevalent together, but because pierce resistance was so lacking, overall it was hard to just live straight up, plain and simple. So light element here, jobs, Sage of Mysidia, Red Mage, and the Kotodama class. So Sage of Mysidia and Kotodama are two brand new. Kotodama, to be fair, is almost exactly like the Staff Mage class that you see on Kilfin Skull. There's always some minor differences, though, between the two, and there's some here as well. In terms of weapons, she wields a rod, or a staff as it's called in game. For equip, she's a hat, cloth, or accessory, and then finally move of 3 and jump of 1, pretty standard for a base unit. Additional info, she's weak to dark 10%, which is straight up average for light units. What we see, the resistances overall decent. There actually is some relatively good ones with a 15% magic resist, 10% on the pierce. One of the reasons why she helps mitigate Kain damage. You'll see more soon why. But 10% weak to slash, so you want to obviously hedge for that. But for a magic user, she's overall fairly well-rounded resistance-wise. And then the ailments, I want to highlight these in particular because they're very important. So 50% resist to confusion. Obviously, Agrius's limit break is a big confusion source, but Kain with the brain piercer also has confusion. She's also got 50% to slow, which Kain's limit break also gives slow. So when you talk about like these three things already, not even getting to the rest of the character, already she mitigates some of the status effects that Kain does in addition to having the resistance of the weapon as well. Stat outlook, you can kind of ignore this chart on the right for a moment. Luck, she's above average, top 10 of all the users in luck. Her agility is average at 59, so the average is really 57. She's just slightly above, but the luck with the agility does make her a potential evade candidate. That's not going to mean that she's going to evade a lot of attacks, but in an evade comp, she theoretically could work and be the host for the Shiva card. The dexterity overall, very low at 172, way below the average of 187, and that's going to be the big thing you're going to want to gear the equipment toward, because dexterity affects not only crit rate, but overall accuracy. And then their accuracy, you can see, is average at 123. So this chart I have here, if you just wanted to pause and take a look, specifically, it's toward evasion with agility and luck. I just like this because it has these are some of the more powerful stats. But overall, she definitely needs help in the accuracy category. So we'll get into why and how you can help with that a little bit later. In terms of the class and job overview, this is really the fun part of her kit. The passives, there's not a lot of bad passives here. They're all pretty good and can be used in different ways. The thing with Sakura in general, it's completely dependent upon what kind of comps we're going to see go against her. So if people pulled for Sakura, you might get a lot of magic versus magic matchups now and seeing which comp overall is better. If people didn't pull for Sakura, they're likely still going to be running some of the Kain meta because it's still going to be the second best comp, if you will, in the rankings, and she's going to just beat the shit out of them. And then if not for a Kain comp, there's still other like slash comps and missile comps, which hypothetically she can fare against, but missile doesn't have a lot of inner kit to really help with that. But anyways, we'll jump in here. She's got two sources of magic up level 1, which will obviously skyrocket her magic attack. This Thunder Blossom skill, though, the third one down, this is really one that I think you're going to want to have on at all times for two reasons. One, the agility factor is huge considering the power creep of fast characters recently. And then secondly, the upgrade to the skill Rebel Intention, we're going to get to that on the main job. It absolutely just blows, it's not even comparable, the non-upgraded version versus the upgraded version. So you're definitely going to want to upgrade that ability. So to me, Thunder Blossom is kind of a must. But in terms of the second one you pick, it's really up to you whether you want to boost that magic, whether you want to increase magic resistance if you're going against other magic comps. This Dark Spirit's Blessing, kind of the same idea where you boost the SPR for those duels while also increasing dark resistance to kind of like make her more well-rounded. So if you're thinking like a defense comp per se, where you don't know if you're going to get a dark attacker or a Sakura team attacker, this one kind of does both. But honestly, a lot to play with here. And obviously PvE, there's a bunch of different things you can do as well, but specifically for PvP, like Guild Wars in the arena, I think Thunder Blossom's a must and probably one of the magic level ups or one of these bottom two. The AP level up is a red mage skill. It's really just there by default. She's got enough AP starting as it is, so I don't think it really benefits her per se. In terms of counter abilities, this is kind of rare. All three have their place. So Payback is really awesome because she does not have any self magic buffs in her kit. She would need it externally, either from another character or from a TMR that she has equipped. So Payback, she will increase her magic by 50% for one turn. So just hit extra hard. The second one, Magic Reflex, also super valuable because if you are seeing a lot of magic versus magic comps, this is going to be huge where you can completely evade a magic attack, which is essentially like, it's a powerful ability, just no damage. And then Steel to Firm will form, again, kind of one of those same ideas where if you're going for more of a bulkier comp, depending on what kind of physical attackers you're going against, this is nice because it does reduce the damage taken. So all three have their place. I don't think one is significantly better than the other. I think Payback's probably the best overall just because it, you know, hopefully people won't be targeting her too much, but honestly, I don't have a strong case for it. In terms of the main job, this is really interesting. So these top two, Light Blade and Thunder, she's got a bunch of multi-element attacks in her kit with Light and Thunder, and I'll get into how that affects her overall soon. These two attacks are very cheap at 12 AP with an immense amount of range. So these attacks are really awesome. Like as the fight goes on, as the AP starts to dwindle, she can still hit relatively hard and relatively quickly, given how cheap these are and how fast they cast. And Light Blade is instant as well, so it's not even a cast time on that. So overall, it's a lower modifier, but still really good ability in the long run. These middle two are what make her incredibly powerful in terms of also shaping the meta, where Thunder's Protection gives her resistance to 3 elements to allies. So lightning, light, and dark. So this is not only going to help against those dark teams, but if you're dueling other light teams, also going to be super helpful. I love this ability. Dark Veil is an ability in the game limited to clerics that kind of does something similar, but all the clerics in the game are pretty trash in the broad scheme of like how you try to optimize. So it's nice to have a character where this is like finally a viable ability to be used fairly often, and it's going to affect a lot of the interactions. The second one, Thunder's Light here, is an offensive attack that it's an imperil. So you're going to decrease lightning and light resistance by 30% for targets with a massive AoE. So this is, again, awesome for not only following up with other lightning attacks of her own where they're going to be imperiled, but also for her own light attacks, and obviously for the teammates you decide to put with her, where if you are starting to use like some of the light element units again, like Cecil, Warrior of Light, if you're, you know, brand new shiny Thancred you're whipping out. Also, lightning damage users, Nivlu just came out, super powerful. In a magic comp, Skahal definitely has a place. So this Imperil is huge for increasing the damage output of the overall team. So these two abilities, I can't like understate them enough. They're hugely important to what make her so great. This final ability, the Rebel Intention, that's the one with the passive ability upgrades. So you can see in base, the huge caveat to this is that it dispels Courage. Ignore fatal damage. So Kane has the Courage ability from his Paladin subjob. So does like Engelbert, Halloween Ryu. This will dispel that, similar to how Dwayne's Magic Infused dispels Re-Raise. So this is another reason why she also counters Kane, in addition to all the other stuff we already said already. So not only will it dispel the ignore fatal damage for the target, but if you have it activated, it bumps the modifier to 265, which is a pretty powerful attack, particularly for 36 AP as an AoE. And then it increases the spirit penetration for the self. So this is where if you are starting to see some magic tanks or magic comps, this is going to absolutely blow them out of the water with the amount of spirit penetration that she has. Because you also need to remember that, in a later job, she has another source of spirit penetration as well. Hugely important. One thing I want to jump into real quickly, and this next slide is super messy, but I'm just talking in purely hypotheticals because there is some confusion about how a lightning attack and a light attack actually work in the overall spectrum of the damage equation. So ignore the screen, look at me. This is a lot here, and I'm going to walk you through it real quick. So this is an infographic from Meow, who's one of the absolute greatest content contributors to the community. He's got a website, I'll link it down below, that lists all the different stat ranks and just information in addition to what you can find on the internet. It's really one of the best places. So this damage calc, I'm going to walk you through it very high level. So very briefly, first step, you take your total attack or magic, bam, you got it. Second step, there's some skill bonuses depending on your job. Third step, a bunch of multipliers get added to amplify what that base stat is. So killers, weapon types, etc. And then you get a final attack value, all right? So you're with me so far? Ignore the graphic. Once you get that final attack value, it then starts to apply it to the enemy's stats. So what defense they have, what SBR they have, and that'll bring it down a little bit. And then the box that I want you to actually look at now, this step 5, this is where this hypothetical that I'm about to talk about, you can see at the top, going against a Glaciella, because this is where things get confusing. Lightning ability versus a water unit. You would inherently think, oh man, it's super strong. Like, lightning's always really good against water. That's true, but it's typically because of the unit matchup. And we're going to differentiate the difference between an attack and the unit attack, or the unit matchup. So in this box, not only is this where the resistances are applied in terms of taking down the damage, but there's also where the elemental resistances are applied. So if you're using a lightning attack on Glaciella, and she's, let's say, 10% weak to lightning, this is where the lightning attack is going to increase the total damage by that 10%. That's where it gets applied. Next step over is where Brave gets applied at the final step. Once all the calcs are done, it just looks at the 2 units flat out. And if it's a unit that's strong against it, it's going to increase it by 25%. And if it's a unit that's weak against, it's going to decrease it by 75%. This little chart in the bottom right, we've known this from day one, all these different elements. Since Sakura is a light element user, when she attacks Glaciella, she does not get the 25% boost, because water is not weak to light. Has to be said plain and simple. That's the big modifier at the end that gets very confusing. The lightning attack damage is in this prior step, but the unit element is the only thing that gets applied to determining whether it's 25% increase in damage or 25% reduction in damage. So if Sakura's attacking a Dwayne or a Kane, she's going to get that total damage number at the end multiplied by 25%, or 25%. Only if it's the opposite element. We'll move on. I just wanted to go over that briefly because it's kind of a confusing part of her kit. I'm actually going to do a video soon walking through this whole equation far more in depth. The sub job here, honestly, very situational to me, and I don't know if I'd use it, to be honest, because in this game, white mages in general and people that have these abilities like Protect and Shell tend to be real bots about it in the AI, where they will prioritize a whole bunch of other abilities to protect all 3 teammates on your, or 3 teammates on your team, and it's just not a good use of time and turns and getting ramped up for the team fight and moving forward. So this is probably better for when you can control her, when you specifically need an external source of Protect or Shell on a character, but this sub job overall very lacking for a sub job. The other next sub-job is the Red Mage. This one, to me, this is one of those sub-jobs that's here because it affects the stats of the character. Where if you're looking at like the difference between Red Mage and Black Mage typically has less dexterity than the Black Mage, which is, to me, is like why they have this here instead of something like a Black Mage, because they intentionally want her dexterity lower as a potential weakness. That, to me, the actual abilities here don't really do much for her kit. She's not a healer. Kira's not going to do anything. This Banisher ability pales in comparison to what some of the other attacks you can do. You're not going to use Sleep that much. Resistance Break might be the only thing you're really using hard. And to me, that's like if you're going against like a raid boss and you genuinely want to like have an ability to break the SPR really hard. So that's really it. This final one though, the Kotodama class, brand new. This is the one that is kind of like the Staff Mage. So you can notice Nimble Movement, kind of the same ability. Increases jump and move. This Spirit Breaking Pain, they have Stunning Staff on the Staff Mage. It's the same ability, AP modifier, 25% to inflict stun. Unavailable Pain, this is a Holy-like ability where it's got a 100% hit chance, but the modifier is much weaker. So this is not as strong as Holy. I'm not sure of the height differences here compared to Holy, but overall it's still a guaranteed hit, super valuable in the game. Diffusive Perplexity, same thing, Staff Mages have this ability to inflict confusion. Earthrending Pain, same thing, Staff Mages have the same ability. It will move her to the target panel, do the damage. And then finally, this is the one that's really unique to the Kotodama, is a Heart Like Needles, where it increases a magic attack AoE to your allies, and then increases Spirit Penetration by 20 for 3 turns to yourself. So, if you're using something like the Rebel Intention here, where it increases the spirit penetration after you've already buffed yourself with the Heart-like Needles. That's a fuck ton of spirit penetration. You're going to murk anything with SPR in your path. So, this is really a great class to increase her mobility, have the guaranteed hit, have the extra buff depending if you're running a magic-heavy comp. To me, these other sub-jobs, they just don't do anything nearly to round out her character and make her as strong as she needs to be. For the other stats and info, the limit break here, Eternal Pain, absolutely incredible limit break. For AP, for a mage, it's expensive for a limit break, but for a mage, it's no big deal. It's a triple hit ability. We've seen a lot of those recently. Enormous AoE, great multiplier in terms of how limit breaks fare. But the increase of Dark Killer of 35, or the modifier of 35%, is huge. Again, one of the reasons why she counters dark comps so heavily. This limit break will absolutely fuck them up. In terms of the TMR, again, this is kind of geared toward her, so it will give her a fuck ton of HP, great for defense, it gives her some accuracy that she needs. The ability is to decrease activation time by 150 in base, and if you max it, 350. The reason why this is an underrated TMR for her is that when you compare it to a couple of the other magic users, such as Kilf and Skahal, they have master abilities that reduce their cast time. And I know Skahal, as a time mage, has a passive that further reduces cast time. So if you're going into some duels with some of those characters, they actually might be casting their spells faster than she will, because they innately have faster cast times than she does. This one, to me, honestly, I don't know if 150 is enough to warrant wearing this TMR compared to other TMRs that exist in the game, whether to boost, certain stats, agility, accuracy, whether you like other abilities better. To me, if you max this though, 350 for an activation time, that's basically like instacast as far as I'm concerned. It's damn near close. So, yeah, good TMR, but needs some work if you're really trying to make it work. And the master ability, this is where we're seeing a lot of characters come in here. It's a party buff. It's one of the things that also makes her so well paired with Yuna in the future, that the two magic uses together, where increased light attack for allies, increased HP for the allies, and the defensive 10 is big because as a mage she's relatively weak. So every bit of defense helps. So, vision card synergies, super standard for mages. None of these have changed from normal. Blossoms in the Dark is a great card for her. She does miss out on some of it because there's a Skahal only ability, but overall, it does still increase her magic by 10%, gives Human Killer to the party, gives her some luck, which will also help her overall evasion and some of the accuracy, if you will, so this will round out some of her stats. Trousseau is an incredible card as well. Increase of Dark Resistance of 10%, so this will further skew the matchup against Dark units, and for a party effect, the magic attack modifier, 35, also pretty awesome. Solidus is great, because always, slash assist is super popular, and also, just genuinely decent stats on the card. Ramu is a good card, but, it depends on what you're running for a party, but this lightning resist will... It will help a little bit if you're dueling Sakura as another lightning units, but doesn't really apply to her. The magic of 50% is really the kick in the balls, where you're going to juice up your team. Freeze Revolve Shiva, this is if you're running an evade comp. She's a viable Shiva candidate to hold this card. Yep, nothing more than that. And then Envious Magician, a good card. Again, it will decrease her defense, but she's a mage. She doesn't rely on having super high defense anyway, and she has some to give away, so you're going to have a little left over. But it will decrease activation time, which she needs a little bit of help with, and the increase of magic to the party is still fairly high. It's not Ramu levels, but it's still valuable. Esper Synergies is pretty typical for... there we go. For mages as well, where you get the big three of Diabolos, Shiva, and Ramu. Those are the three primary magic Espers. They all boost magic attack. Diabolos in more ways than others. Some of them have certain resists, like Shiva's got Pierce resist. Diabolos has Slash resist, which will help depending on the matchups you have. Overall, the agility of Shiva is really awesome. I still think I prefer Shiva primarily. I'd rather get an extra turn or two in than have harder hitting attacks but move slower. Just because when you talk about enemy barriers and magic barriers and resist attacks 3 times, to me, getting by a lot of that isn't by just hitting super hard, because you can defend super hard against one attack. Like if you're running a Laswell, you might blow your load throwing a huge attack at him, but if he's just going to mirage it, no big deal. But when you get more turns in the fight, as a magic user in particular, or really just anybody, you're just going to be able to barrage them with attacks to the point that they just probably going to lose in the long run. I love Odin for the same reason, high agility, but he does have missile resist as well, which is super popular. A human killer is still super potent. And then Aegon, that's my catch-up. I always throw him here. He's got even stats for attack and magic, so he's not a huge dramatic decrease from what you normally get. He will add pierce resist and magic resist, which will help in some of those matchups as well. So overall, a lot of good Espers to pick from for her. And then finally, equipment optimization. This is like by far the hardest part of Sakura. The rods are fairly straightforward, but the rest, boy, I get a speech for you. So the Prunus Lamina is the brand new rod for her. Absolutely incredible rod. Increases light and lightning attack by 20% on the modifier. Increases magic attack by 15%. To me, there's a real question here whether or not you go for the aim build or not, because you're going to need accuracy from somewhere. And I'm going to get to that on the next slide. I'll come back to this. But overall, awesome card. The magic stat in particular is objectively, in my opinion, better than the Platinum Rob. Not only does it have the extra modifier built into here, but the magic stat on average of the Lamina rod is higher. I don't know. The accuracy is better here than the accuracy built on the aim. So Platinum Rod is great if you already have it, but you really should grind for this rod. It's tailor-made to optimizing her. For the rest of the equipment, anything. And I say that because I mean it. It literally depends on what enemy teams you're going against. If you are seeing a lot of magic comps, you're going to want the smart coat on her. If you're seeing a lot of pierce comps still, you're probably going to want to go something that's more, if you're building it more for evade. If you're seeing missile comps, you have the platinum robe. There's a, accessory-wise, the Bale Gauntlet will help her accuracy, give her magic resist. Like, there's so many things that work for her. It really depends on what kind of comp you're intending on running this against. Are you running it to dual magic teams, or are you running it to cancel Kane teams, or are you running her and just trying to append the magic damage and build her up, and you can throw, like, Soul of Thamasa on there and a couple other things. So the real thing I wanted to emphasize, though, is what are good sources of accuracy. So number one, the weapon. The Prunus Lamina gives 15 accuracy. In terms of the non-TMR, and that's how I broke it out, non-TMR and then TMR. In terms of the non-TMR stuff, none of the cloths, none of the armors will give you accuracy. The hats and the accessories will. I know it's a lot to take in, but it's kind of why I've written down here. So the big trade-off is if you're using a hat or an accuracy here in the second slot, assuming first slot is the weapon, you're going to take away some of her bulk, where the cloth that she can equip obviously has much higher HP pools, and they innately have a lot more resists on them typically. I know Bale Gauntlet has magic resist, but like Wolf Mask and Alexandrite Ring, they don't add any like magic resist, missile resist, slash resist like the Feeds Lucerna Cloth does. So if you're using these as your source of accuracy, you're going to give up some bulk and survivability in trade-off for hopefully using the Prunus Lamina magic version, which 150 magic is it still packs a pretty good punch. So there's just some things to play with there. And also move on. So TMRs though, these are the TMRs that add accuracy as well. The only problem I have with these is that most of these run much lower than what you can get on the top half. So if you're deciding I'm going to use the magic version, which gives no accuracy boost, I'm going to run a robe, which gives no accuracy boost, and you're running one of these TMRs, if you're looking at the average here, it's like 8 and 12, which on the scale of things, 8 and 12 is good. It could be much better. Because if you're looking at these these hat accessories here, they give 15 accuracy plus more accuracy if you have the aim builds, plus more because a lot of them have dexterity added on there. So 20 dexterity is the equivalent of 4 extra accuracy. So if you decide to get your source of accuracy from the TMR accessories, it's still going to make her relatively less accurate in general. So something to really keep in mind. Is it worth building the weapon for the accuracy and just never worrying about it because you get 15 here and then you can basically play with the rest to add that chip stat, whatever, chip stat later on. That's all I can say, though. I really can't give any recommendations other than just trying to play with this. It's a giant Tetris equation. So overall, that's Sakura in a nutshell. This is a super fun character. She's definitely going to change a lot of the comps we see. We are still limited to some of the missile strength given the map that we're on, not only in the arena, but Snowy Mountains, but also with the temple style, I forgot the name of it, arena in Guild Wars. I'm sure once more maps change, we're going to see whole other sets of uses for her. But overall, she's a major contributor to a change you're going to see in the game, where Kayn is going to go by the wayside. And it's honestly not only because of Sakura, where she obviously very clearly counters what he wants to do, but because just recently they also included other sources of pierce resistance with the Bale Burgeon helmet, 8% pierce resist. They also added the Leviathan Vision card, which is the 20% team pierce resist. The Leviathan Esper, which although it's a water-oriented Esper, he's also got pierce resist on him. So you have like 3 or 4 Espers now that have pierce resist potential. So now that there's like that option out there, Kayn isn't going to be such a gimme just to throw out there. And with the confidence that you're going to beat anybody, because the fact of the matter is there's a high potential that a lot of teams are going to be mitigating what made Kayn so strong for so long. Yeah, so overall, good luck. I hope those of you who pulled for her, got her, have fun building her. Me personally, kind of spitballing here, this is kind of the extra time. I'm actually in the process of farming a second staff because I want one for her. And the comp I'm going to try to work out is her next to Skahal, where this rod, remember, it increases lightning attack as well. So to me, if you're running her with Skahal and she's imperiling enemies for light and lightning attack, Skahal is going to really take advantage of that lightning imperil. Nivlu's also a super great candidate. So to me, either one of those, the upside with Skahal, though, is that you can really get full advantage out of some of the magic cards you're going to be equipping. So if you're running something like Blossoms in the Dark, Nivlu's not going to take advantage of the human killer because she doesn't do magic attacks. If you're running something like Ramuh, Nivlu's not going to get the magic boost. So that's really where you want to play with the vision cards and try to see what works best. In terms of tanks, though, with that comp, to me, like, it depends on what you're actually trying to go after. If you're going after the dark comps and the Kayn comps and just trying to blow them out of the water, probably still want a physical tank there, or someone who can, like Dwayne in particular, obviously, who can really sustain themselves in the front lines. There's other options. I know. Engelbert's not ideal, but he's there. The Leviathan card gives some new options for Warrior of Light as well, where some more sustainability. And then if you're running its magic comps, though, that to me is like the really fun idea, where now you can suddenly like throw Rain in the mix. You can throw Fryevi in the mix. The reason why I like those two magic tanks in particular is because they have nothing to do with the resistances she gives or the imperils or the imperils. They're not already weak to the elements, so they don't get further weakened by the imperils. But yeah, she does nothing to like do extra damage against ice or fire units in terms of the chess matchup. So I really like the two of them as magic tanks. And then yeah, finally, I've also tried to think of some of the magic user tanks that could potentially be subbed in. Where I know like someone like Kilf and Ryryu technically have the ability to do some tanking, where Kilf has the ability to stop some physical damage with her shields. I know Ryryu has the courage ability to re-raise. He's got some self-healing abilities as well. I think the only downside with running either Kilf or Ryryu is the fact that Leela is still so prevalent. So to me, like the wind element matchup, I think from everything I've seen, Leela can essentially like one-shot both of them. With her limit break, obviously, if Ryu has the courage on, he's going to still live, but he's going to be a 1 HP. So a lot of things to play with. That's why I really like this character, because there's so many comps she can potentially work with. So good luck, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll talk to y'all real soon.